What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another critter format video, and this is going to be a fun one because I'm showing off one of the decks in the format that I probably should have shown off a long time before this, and that's Mass Negate. Now, I did have a previous video covering this with Janjo's version of the deck, showing off one of the games that they played in the Creepy Critter Extravaganza tournament, but I hadn't shown off my own version of the deck, and the reason for that is it actually took a bit of time to come to the version that you see before you here. There are a lot of different ways you can build this, and I thought long and hard about what I valued most in the deck before actually committing to the list that you see before you. And I think there's still a long way this list can go. There's also a lot that you can do to customize this list further to your own tastes. Mass Negate, or decks that heavily feature Mask of Darkness, are often lumped into a category known as Flip Control, which uses flip monsters like Mask of Darkness, Magician of Faith, and Maneater Bug for powerful advantages in this format. Now, initially, I was planning on potentially making this deck sort of a Flip Control deck, but I found that, if you try and add in the Magicians of Faiths and the Maneater Bugs, it can get a bit clunky. You have to make some cuts that I wasn't really comfortable making. So I decided to split up the Flip Control deck into a different video and focus more heavily on Mask Negate here. So that's why the only flip monster you see in this deck is Mask of Darkness. There just really wasn't enough space for Magicians of Faith and Maneater Bugs. Before I dive in to the deck breakdown and give my deeper reasoning behind all the choices that I made in this deck, if you like this sort of content, like seeing duels in Critter format, Yu-Gi Kaiba format, all these old retro formats, then please consider liking this video and also subscribing to my channel. I have a goal of reaching 250 subscribers by the end of November, and we're almost there. So it would be really cool if we could get that goal fourth of the way to 1,000. And also, if you're subscribed, you'll get to know when my videos come out more easily in the future. But now that that's out of the way, let's dive in to the deck breakdown. Now, the goal of Mass Negate is to essentially use powerful counter traps to shut down what your opponent does, and things like Mask of Darkness to reuse those counter traps for later. So, of course, we're playing the 3 Mask of Darkness to recycle those counter traps, and our counter traps of choice are 3 Magic Jammer and 3 7 Tools of the Bandit. You might be wondering why I didn't feature Solemn Judgment in the main deck. And the reason for that is you don't often care about negating summons. What you care more about is negating traps and spells that can mess you up. So if we've already got the Magic Jammers for the spells, I figured if we're just going to worry about the traps, then 7 Tools is a bit better for us because it costs less of our life points. And as you can see from the monster lineup here, we don't really have the most defensive options. So I like the counter trap lineup as I have it here. 7 Tools can be a bit awkward in the late game though, if you're down to very low life points, as you may see in the games today. So that's maybe an argument to put in Solemn here instead. But I do like 7 Tools, and I think it works out well for the deck. Maybe I'll change that going forward, but for now, this is what I'm sticking with. Now, for the other monsters, we've got a fairly aggressive package here. We're actually playing 3 7-colored fish and 3 Lodgin, maxing out on the 1800 beaters. The philosophy behind this is that we have a ton of things like Magic Jammer and 7 Tools of the Bandit to protect our 1800 beaters while they're on the field. And if we could just protect them with our counter traps and just keep getting in for damage, then that could be enough to just win the game on its own. If these aggressive beaters can't quite do it, we do also have a Cannon Soldier in the deck to provide some burn damage to finish off the last of our opponent's life points. And of course, to search out all of these monsters, we have 2 Sangan, 2 Witch. Now, Sangan's a bit awkward in this deck. You don't necessarily want to search out Mask of Darkness because that can telegraph what you're going to do next turn. But Sangan can always search out Witch if you don't want to search out Mask of Darkness. And there are some situations where you do want to search out Mask of Darkness. Sangan can also search out Cannon Soldier, which is always great near the end of the game. The last 3 monsters we have are 3 Thunder Dragons, and I think this is maybe a card you could cut. But the reason why this is nice is because it pairs extremely well with Magic Jammer, which requires you to discard a card to negate a spell. As you don't really want to negate your powerful cards, you might as well have the Thunder Dragons there to be easy discard fodder, because when you draw one Thunder Dragon, you can thin your deck down and get 2 cards that are basically useless to hand that you can just discard for Magic Jammer very easily. It can also have some applications with like Change of Heart, where you can Change of Heart an opponent's monster, and then to prevent your opponent from getting it back, you can tribute it off for a Thunder Dragon. But I do think that drawing this in a pretty rough game state can be pretty bad, so you could potentially swap these out for other things and just discard an actual decent card with Magic Jammer when you need to activate it. The spell lineup here is pretty straightforward. We have 1 Change of Heart, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Pot of Greed, 1 Raigeki. The Power 5 limited spells, all insanely strong. We have 3 Fissure to act as more removal. And we have 2 Swords of Revealing Light to stall our opponent for a bit. And Swords is also a bit better in this deck because if your opponent tries to heavy it, you'll likely have a Magic Jammer online. So Swords is more likely to stick around for the full 3 turns than it potentially would be in other decks. I may have forgotten the Heavy Storm in the main deck in my last video on Fusion, but I didn't actually forget Heavy Storm in the main deck here. We're actually not playing Heavy Storm in the main because it kind of conflicts with our strategy. We want to save these powerful counter traps for as long as possible when we actually want to use them on very impactful plays. And setting up for a heavy can kind of weaken that strategy a little bit. I don't hate heavy in the main deck. I think Janjo did have heavies in his main deck, in his version of the deck. But in my version, I chose to cut the heavies. I think people are going to try playing around heavy anyways, so we might as well relegate them to the side deck. If the opponent doesn't know you're off the heavies, then, you know, it's not that big of a loss potentially. And I didn't really feel like the deck needed heavy when I played it in the games you'll see today. But it's in the side if you want to bring it in. For the traps, I've already mentioned the 3 Magic Jammers, the 3 7 Tools of the Bandit. We also have a Mirror Force here, insanely strong card, especially in this deck. Being able to loop it back with Mask of Darkness is insanely good, and you can often pull this off multiple times per game, which is just nuts. We also have 3 Trap Hole. Again, you know, this can be looped with Mask of Darkness pretty well. Unfortunately, if you do loop it with Mask of Darkness, your opponent will know about it, but it's still good as removal just in case. We also have 3 Waboku to protect our life points and our monsters, and also to potentially prevent our opponent from activating effect like Mass Sorcerer or White Magical Hat. So this is very good in that context as well. I think maybe you could add in some Solemns if you wanted to, maybe swapping out a Trap Hole or a Waboku or something like that. But I honestly didn't really feel the need to. But it's something you can do if you want to. As I said, this deck is very adjustable, very customizable for however you want to play it. For the side deck, we have 3 Jurai Gumo if we need to go a bit more aggressive. We have 2 Maneater Bug if we need more removal. We have 3 Giant Soldier of Stone if we need to go a bit more defensive. We have 2 Magician of Faith, and this is more of a relic of when I was sort of trying to figure this out with flip control. But I do think it can be good to bring in if you're siding something else out. It is a very good card after all. We also have the 2 Heavy Storms. You might want to side this in if your opponent has figured out that you're not on heavy in the main and are sort of getting more reckless with their back row setting. This can be great at punishing that. And we also have 3 Solemn Judgment. This is a very flexible card, so you can bring it in a lot of different situations. Maybe swapping it out for like a 7 Tools if you so wish. Or maybe even like a Trap Hole or something. But Solemn's a very good card. As I said, I think it could even be in the main, just swapping some cards around, but I like it in the side deck better. As a note, I probably should have a fusion deck here with some twin-headed Thunder Dragons, just because upon seeing Thunder Dragon, you know, if you've got a fusion deck, your opponent might be worried about a potential twin head coming out. As I showed off in my last video, that deck can be pretty good. So it's not outside the realm of possibility if an opponent's on Thunder Dragon that they are playing a polymerization in the main deck or side deck. So having a fusion deck would be better for this deck, just for the mind games. But I chose to just show this deck off in its most basic form. So I don't actually have the fusion deck set up. But if you're playing this on your own, you should probably put one together. But now that the deck breakdowns out of the way, let's dive into the duels, as I think they are really great games, and I'm excited to show them off. Okay, we've got a game against Lucas Gustafsson here, who you may recognize from the finals of the Creepy Critter Extravaganza tournament that I streamed on the channel a while back. Lucas is a great player in the format. They were once known as the Critter God. So let's see if we can take down a god in some of these games here. We do manage to win the rock, paper, scissors, so we do get to go first here, which is very nice. As we can set up our counter traps and be in a pretty good position. Thunder Dragon in the opener is pretty nice, but unfortunately we don't really have any other monsters. We will fire off the Thunder Dragon just to get the 2 remaining Thunder Dragons out of the deck, thin it down a bit. But beyond that, there's not much we can do with this hand besides setting a Waboku and passing. I think later on this hand could be crazy, but right now we're in kind of dire straits. They're going to draw, summon out White Magical Hat, and try attacking in here. This is kind of rough for us. We could potentially not Waboku this and just hope they don't hit something good. But I think we kind of have to use the Waboku here, given that we do have some very powerful cards in our hand. So we're going to Waboku that. They're just going to set one pass back. Magic Jammer's okay, but, you know, we would have liked a monster here. We will be forced to fish without White Magical Hat. And we're just going to set Waboku, set Magic Jammer, pass back to them. If that's a set heavy, and it's kind of rough, we can always just chain Waboku and let the Magic Jammer die. But we'd be in a rough spot if that happens, so we got to hope that isn't heavy. They're going to bring out Muka Muka, and that's fine by us. We don't have anything to do against that. And they're going to attack in. We'll take the 1800. We could have Waboku'd that, but we don't really feel the need to yet. And we'll just pass back to them. Swords is okay, but I don't even think we need to use it yet. If they bring out another monster on board, we could just Raigeki. We're not at low enough life that we can die out of nowhere, so I think we're fine keeping things as they are. They'll attack in with Muka Muka, which is now at 2100, which we didn't quite realize. But we'll take the whole 21, and they'll just pass back to us. And we draw Trap Hole, which is a bit late. We might consider Raigekiing now, and then maybe reborning the Muka Muka, although we could also reborn the White Magical Hat. With the Trap Hole now, we've got a bit more protection, so I think there's a couple things we could do here. We could also just activate the swords and buy even more time, and that is what we're going to do. We don't want to keep taking damage. Pass back to them. If they do have heavy, I think this is worth Magic Jammering, so they'll pass back to us, which is a great draw. We finally draw a monster. So we'll set the Witch, pass back to them. They're just going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Cannon Soldier, which could be good for later. We are going to set it because we could potentially get a lot of damage on board with it, and we do have the Reborn to bring it back later if we need it. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we should have just kept it in hand, but I think this is fine. They're going to bring out a 7-colored fish, and this might mean we have a heavy in our future, but looks like they're not going to heavy, so we're fine with that. This makes a very good board to Raigeki. We are going to Pot of Greed first, though, just see if we have another way to deal with this. Mirror Force is pretty great for later. We can Mirror Force another aggressive board that they set up, if they do set up one. We're going to flip up the Witch, because we're attacking with the Witch no matter what. And now we have a bit of a choice here. We could flip up the Cannon Soldier and attack with that as well. It would open us up to getting Mirror Forced, but we haven't normal summoned yet, so it wouldn't be the worst because we could always search off a Witch and then bring out whatever we find. And it's kind of iffy. We don't have a 7 Tool of the Bandit set, so we might want to save that to later when we're sure that we won't die to Mirror Force. We're just going to go for it. We're getting aggressive. If they've got Mirror Force, they've got Mirror Force, but we got to go for this. And it looks like it all will connect, which means that they likely don't have a Mirror Force, because I think this would have been a pretty good board to Mirror Force here. We're just going to pass back to them. We could have tributed off the Witch with the Cannon Soldier and then like set another Sangan or Witch that we searched off of it. But I don't really think that's worth it. That opens us up to being fissured. So I think this is fine. They're going to bring out a Lodgin, and I think we will just Trap Hole that. We are going to Trap Hole that. Just be able to get in with our monsters some more. They're going to Last Will here, and this makes me really wish that we had potentially set the Mirror Force, but it looks like they're just going to bring out a Giant Soldier, which, you know, honestly is fine by us. We don't really have a way to clear it now, although I guess we could Reborn a Muka Muka. That would do it, I think. We're going to think about what we want to do here, because we could go for the Reborn and the Muka Muka, but then we won't have it to bring back Cannon Soldier. So it might not be worth doing. We are just going to go for it, though. Maybe this is a bit of a mistake, but I think we just want to keep getting aggressive. We have the read that they don't have Mirror Force in their back row, but we're going to switch the Cannon Soldier to defense just in case, and we're just going to attack in with everything here. They do have a Woboku, so nothing we can do about that. And we're just going to pass back to them. We are open to a board clear here, but we do have Dark Hole if they try and commit more to board after. They are going to summon out a 7-colored fish, and they're just going to attack into our Cannon Soldier. We could potentially Woboku this if we want to keep the Cannon Soldier around, but I think we're okay with Cannon Soldier dying, as we still do have a pretty good aggressive board here. So the Cannon Soldier will die, and we draw Sangam, which is pretty great as well. We're just going to switch the Witch to defense, as the Muka Muka can only get over one of their monsters this turn. And we're going to attack the Muka Muka into the 7-colored fish. They do have a Mirror Force, so they will be able to clear the Muka Muka. We're just going to set a Sangan, set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. I don't think that they'll be able to get through our defensive monsters here, but just in case, the Mirror Force is nice to have. They're just going to attack into the Sangan. We're going to let that go through, get a Witch to hand, and we're set up for a pretty good position next turn, potentially. They're just going to pass back to us, and 7 tools is very nice to have. This way we'll have an option for pretty much whatever they want to do. We have Magic Jammer for spells, 7 tools for traps. So we're feeling pretty good about this. We are just going to Dark Hole this board. Reason being is that they're 2 monsters we can't really clear without Dark Hole. And we do get a search off the Witch, so it won't be the worst thing in the world. So we're going to search off of our Witch, get a Lodge into hand, and then we're just going to bring out the Witch that we drew, because if they have Trap Hole, this lets us get another search, and we don't have a way to stop a Trap Hole if they do have it yet. They're just going to take the 11, we'll set the 7 tools, pass back to them, and they're going to Swords of Within Light, and we could actually Magic Jammer this if we want to. We could potentially just kill them if we keep getting aggressive here, so it might be worth doing. We're going to save the Magic Jammer, though, and just let them do what they're doing. So we draw Mask of Darkness, which could be good for later. I think we're going to save the Mask of Darkness here because we want to save it for, like, Mirror Force. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to switch the Witch to defense, and then we're just going to pass back to them. If they have a way to clear the Witch, we do have Mirror Force if they try and get aggressive here. So we're not too worried about that. Yeah, they're just going to pass back to us. Nothing really to do. We're just going to pass back to them. And they're just going to pass back to us. There's nothing really we need to do on this board state. So, we're just going to set the Lodgin because we are at 7 cards. And we're going to pass back to them. The Lodgin also baits out a Change of Heart potentially. So I think it's pretty good to do. They are going to Change of Heart our Lodgin, which is part of why we set it. And they're going to flip that up. We're fine with that. They're going to try attacking into the Witch with the Lodgin. We're fine with that as well. We get a search here. And they're just going to pass back to us. So all in all, very happy about that Change of Heart there. If they had like a Cannon Soldier or something triggered off the Lodgin, that would have made it a bit worse. But it looks like we baited them into thinking that was like a Magician of Faith or something. So we were able to get them to basically waste the Change of Heart, which is very, very nice. We're just going to bring out another beater here, and they do have Trap Hole. We could 7 tools that, but honestly, we've got another 1800 beater in hand, so I don't really think we need to. We're just going to attack into their set. It is a Magician of Faith, so they will be able to get back Change of Heart. Kind of unfortunate, but not the worst thing in the world. Main phase 2, we're just going to set the 7 tools to Bandit because we are at 7 cards there, so we'll just pass back to them. They're going to Fisher away the Lodgin, and we could Magic Jammer this. I think we're thinking about it because we just want to keep our monster on field. But I think we'll let it die. We do want to use up one of our back row, I think, because next turn we're going to have another 7 cards in hand, and freeing up back row gives us some more options for what to do there. They're just going to bring out a Witch, though, and attack in. And honestly, we can take that. We're down to 3k, but that's fine. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. Unfortunately, being at 3,000 means that we can't activate 3 7 tools of the Bandit, but hopefully that won't come up in this game. We're going to bring out a 7-colored fish. They're going to try and trap hole that, and I think that is worth 7 toolsing. We are getting pretty low on life, so we want to start using these now before we cannot anymore. So we will 7 tools that. Also, it's good just to keep a beater on field, as we don't really have any more to use. So we're going to attack into their witch. They're going to take 700, add a Sangan to hand. Perfectly fine by us. And we'll just pass back to them. They are going to fisher away the 7-colored, and I think we potentially could Magic Jammer this. We do have another Magic Jammer in hand, so we could replace it on the next turn. And we don't really have any more beaters in hand, so it might be worth doing. We're going to think about it for sure. And we are going to actually Magic Jammer here, discarding a Thunder Dragon. They do have another Fisher. We're going to make the think face here just to sort of bluff that we do have another Magic Jammer or a Solemn or something like that. But we will lose the 7-colored fish there. They're going to bring out Sangan, attack in for 1,000. And we're going to think about this because if they drop us down to 1,000, we can't actually use up our other 7 tools with the Bandit. So we are actually going to Woboku this. It feels kind of bad to do so, but I think we had to. We do have Mask of Darkness in hand if we want to get back a trap like Woboku later. The only downside is that they have Change of Heart. We know that they have Change of Heart because they added it back off the Magician of Faith. And so they could potentially take our Mask of Darkness, flip it up, grab Mirror Force. But that we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. We do draw a 7-colored fish, which is very nice to draw here. We're going to bring that out, attack into the Sangan. They're going to take that. They're going to search out a Cannon Soldier, which is pretty bad when we're this low, and also when they have a Change of Heart in hand. Luckily, we do have a Magic Jammer in hand to set, so we're going to set the Magic Jammer and hope that they don't have a heavy that they'll activate before the Change of Heart, because that would be pretty rough. They are going to Change of Heart our 7-colored fish. We are going to Magic Jammer that, because if they do take our 7-colored fish, then they could tribute it off for Cannon Soldier, tribute off Cannon Soldier, drop us down to 1,000. Then we'd be in a really rough spot. So we are going to Magic Jammer that, discarding our other Thunder Dragon. And they're just going to set one pass back to us. And that 7-colored fish means that we actually do have game here. And this is one of the nice things about the Mass Negate deck, is that oftentimes you'll just have game. Because even if your opponent is back row, you'll have things to negate it with. So what we can do here is we can flip up their set with Swords of Revealing Light, which you'll see here. First, we'll bring out 7-colored fish. If they have Trap Hole, we've got 7 tools. We'll activate Swords of Revealing Light. They'll add back a Change of Heart. We can Fisher away their Magician of Faith, attack in for 3,600. And if they do have Woboku, we do have the 7 tools for that. And this is why we kept our life points above 1,000, because if we want to make this big push at the end of the game, we really do want to have a 7 tools online to make it happen. And we did win that game, but it was very, very intense, very, very close. But a lot of these games are very close because this deck is more reactive than proactive. So oftentimes it will be a long grind game until you can get into a position where you can actually kill your opponent. I think that game 1 definitely showed off potentially the use of Solemn Judgment over 7 tools. We did get pretty low, and we did have to use Woboku in kind of a bad way since we had to keep our life points above 1,000, but it did work out in the end. Game 2, considering that they didn't even see that we're on Mask of Darkness, we actually do keep the deck the same because all they know is that we have a lot of counter traps in the deck at this point. They could have the read that we're probably on Mask of Darkness because of that, but they didn't actually see that, so unclear how they'll side here. I think that the deck is perfectly fine for this matchup, so let's see how we can do in the next game. I also don't really know how to side with this deck. It's kind of tough. So we're just going to keep it the same, see how it works out for us. And this is a bit of an interesting hand, but let's see what they do. They're just going to set one and pass. We draw a Witch, so we could bring out the Witch and attack in. If that's a Mass Sorcerer, though, that would be pretty bad for us. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to set the Witch, set a Trap Hole, pass back to them. They're going to Swords, so they will be able to flip up the Witch, see what we've got. And they're not going to be able to do anything about that. That's perfectly fine by us. We're going to set a Magic Jammer here to potentially negate a powerful spell that they have. I think honestly we could have saved this as there aren't really any powerful spells that we're super worried about at this point. And if they do heavy this, we don't necessarily want to waste the Magic Jammer on it. But I think it's just good to have in the back row, so I don't think that's too bad of a move. They're going to bring out a Lodgin, and I think we will just trap hole that. Yep, we do have another trap hole in hand that we can replace it with, so we might as well do that now. We're going to set the trap hole, pass back to them. We could have set a Mirror Force, and maybe it would have been better to set Mirror Force in case they've got like Fisher and a Mass Sorcerer, but we'll see. They are going to bring out Mass Sorcerer, and they are going to flip up Sangan. This is not looking good for us. They do have a Fisher, so we could actually Magic Jammer that. There's actually a very good argument to Magic Jammering that, because then they won't be able to draw a card with Mass Sorcerer. But I think we just do have to let it go, save the Magic Jammer for more powerful cards, and we'll get a Lodge into hand, which is not too bad. So it's just kind of unfortunate. If we had set the Mirror Force, then we would have been able to stop them from drawing, but unfortunately they do get to draw, so not looking good for us. Fisher is pretty nice. We can Fisher away their Mass Sorcerer if we wish, but I think what we're going to do is we're just going to set a Mask of Darkness, set a trap hole, pass back to them. If they do Change of Heart, our Mask of Darkness, that would be kind of unfortunate, but at least they don't have any traps in the graveyard, so it wouldn't be the worst. And we do have Mirror Force to activate if they try attacking in. We can then flip up the Mask of Darkness next turn, get the Mirror Force back, which is a very powerful combo. They are going to try to heavy here, and we will Magic Jammer. And there's a bit of a debate about what we actually want to send, but I do think the weakest card in our hand is Fisher, so we will send that. We also have Mirror Force to deal with any monsters that they have, so I don't think this is the worst. They're going to bring out a 7-colored fish, and they're just going to switch Sangan to defense to play around Mirror Force. Very smart. But we will be able to still Mirror Force them for 2, which is pretty good. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. And we're going to bring out Lodgin. They will trap hole that, so we will lose the Lodgin, unfortunately. But we will be able to flip up Mask of Darkness, add a Mirror Force back, and then just attack into their Sangan. They'll be able to search here. They'll add another Sangan. And main phase 2, we could set the Mirror Force. I think we might, but it does play into heavy a bit, so we might not as well. We're going to think about it. They have used up 1 heavy, so it's not the most likely that they have another, but they could have Magician of Faith or something to get it back, so it's better just to play around it. They're going to bring out a Sangan, try attacking into the Mask, but we will actually trap hole that, because we do have another in hand. And using up this trap hole does open us up for setting Mirror Force next turn if we want to. So they're going to add a Witch to hand, set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Lodgin, which is very nice. We're going to bring out the Lodgin and try just attacking in. And if they've got Mirror Force, they've got Mirror Force, but honestly, it's good to get them to use it up this early. And it looks like they do have Mirror Force. Kind of unfortunate, but we'll set a Mirror Force of our own, pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Witch and try and attack in here. Honestly, that's perfectly fine by us. We'll take the 11. They're going to pass back to us. Thunder Dragon is very nice. It will thin down our deck a little bit, but it doesn't really do much against this board. We could Change of Heart there with the Black Forest, tribute over it for a Thunder Dragon and attack in. But I think we want to save the Change of Heart for when they likely have like a flip monster that can actually do something. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set Mask of Darkness, pass back to them. We can always Mirror Force them if they attack again. Flip up Mask of Darkness, get back Mirror Force, which is pretty good. They're going to bring out Cannon Soldier, and this is looking pretty good for us because they are going to try attacking in here, and we will Mirror Force away their board. They will get a search with that, but we do have the Mask of Darkness set to get back to Mirror Force, so we're feeling very good about that. Swords is a pretty good draw as well. We're going to flip up Mask of Darkness, add back a Mirror Force, and we're just going to tribute off the Mask of Darkness for Thunder Dragon. If they want to use a trap hole on that, that's perfectly fine by us. It gets 1 trap hole out of the way for our other beaters later on. So we'll attack in with the Thunder Dragon. They'll take 16. Main phase 2, we're just going to set a trap hole. Maybe we should set the Mirror Force instead, but we want to bait them into thinking that we have a Mirror Force set. If they heavy here, then losing a trap hole is a lot better than losing a Mirror Force. And they're going to Fisher away our Thunder Dragon, very unfortunate. Bring out a Witch of the Black Forest, attack in, and we could have trap holed that, but honestly, I think we can save the trap hole for something a little bit better. They're going to set another pass back to us, and this makes us feel a lot more comfortable about setting a Mirror Force here. We are just going to activate Swords instead, as we want to stall for a bit, potentially draw into a monster that can clear the witch without having to resort to a powerful trap like Mirror Force, and it will pass back to them. They're going to switch the witch to defense, just pass back to us. That's perfectly fine by us. We'll set a 7 tools, pass back to them, and they're just going to pass back to us. We're playing the waiting game here. We do draw a 7-colored fish, which is very nice. We'll bring that out, and that's fine by them, which is fine by us. We're going to attack into the witch. They're going to get a search here. Searching out a Muka Muka, which is honestly great because we can just trap hole that if they summon it out. And they're going to bring out the Muka Muka indeed. We will just trap hole that, and they will try fishing our 7-colored, and we will lose the 7-colored fish, unfortunately. We draw a Sangan, though, which is extremely good here. We're going to summon out that Sangan, try attacking in, and see what happens. They're just going to take 1,000. We're going to set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. We figure that they don't have a heavy set, most likely. And if they do want to heavy the board, then they'd be losing some cards as well. Yeah, it's not the best, but we've just got to hope that they don't have the heavy. And they're just going to set one and pass back to us. We are going to change of heart here because we figure that the only thing they'd set on this board is either a flip monster or a mass sorcerer. Either way, we're getting some advantage here. We're just going to flip up the Magician of Faith. That is fine by them, so we'll be able to get back a change of heart for later. Very nice here. And we could just attack in with everything here, but we are going to get really aggressive, bring out a Thunder Dragon, and that's fine by them. So we're just going to attack in with everything here. 2,600. They do have a Waboku, and we could actually 7 tools that if we want to. We don't. We're going to save the 7 tools for later. Maybe this was a mistake, but I think we're going to try and get more value off the 7 tools than just 2,600 damage. We're going to pass back to them. They do have swords, so that will block us off for a bit. We're going to make the thinking face again to bluff that we have Magic Jammer, but we are just going to let that go through because we don't have anything to stop it. And they'll pass back to us. We draw another Waboku. We'll switch our monster to defense and set a Waboku. They're very unlikely to heavy here. If they do heavy here, they're losing the swords, which honestly we're fine with. And we can chain Waboku. So they're just going to pass back to us. We draw swords of our own. Very nice, but we don't really need to activate it yet. They're going to bring out 7-colored fish. That will be fine with us. And we will lose a Thunder Dragon here, potentially. We could actually activate Waboku to save it, and then Fisher away their 7-colored. Or we could just Mirror Force away their 7-colored fish. I guess because we figured that they know we have Mirror Force, then we want to use it up because it's very much heavy bait. So we can use that now, use Waboku and Fisher for later. And we draw a 7-colored of our own, which is very nice. Swords will finally expire, so next turn we'll be able to actually attack in. They're going to Pot of Greed, and honestly with how low they're getting, Deck Out could potentially be an option for us later. They're going to bring out a 7-colored fish, and they will try attacking into the Thunder Dragon. We're going to think about this because we could just Waboku it, and then change of heart their 7-colored and attack in for game potentially. But I think we are going to let it go because we do have a 7-colored in hand that we can bring out and make a very similar play. I don't think that would actually be lethal though, so maybe we should have just activated the Waboku now. We do have another in hand, but looks like they're going to set one more pass back to us, and we're just going to bring out a Sangan, and we're actually going to Fisher away the 7-colored because if we change of hearted here, that'd only be 3,800. Not quite enough to kill them. If we had kept Thunder Dragon on the field, it would have, but you know, they've got 2 back row, we can only negate 1, so I think this is fine. We're going to try attacking in for 2,000 here. They are going to fire Waboku, and I think here we will 7 tools. They've used up 2 Waboku. It's unlikely they have another, and with the change of heart and the 7-colored fish in hand, I think we can actually push for game next turn. So we're going to think about this, and we will actually 7 tools. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we're getting a bit too greedy here, but I think right now, when we've got the offensive momentum, we've got to get a bit greedy. We're just going to pass back to them. They will bring out a Lodgin. That's perfectly fine by us. And they're going to Reborn out another Lodgin, which is kind of rough. If they had just had the one Lodgin, crashed into a Sangan, we could have searched Cannon Soldier, Change of Hearted the Lodgin next turn, and then gotten for some damage. That second Lodgin complicates things a little bit. and we don't necessarily want to lose both our Sangans here. So we will think about it a bit, and we will actually fire Woboku. We do have another Woboku in hand, so it's not the worst thing in the world. They're going to set another pass back to us. 7 tools is nice, but, you know, we really want to make a big push this turn. We check their graveyard to see what they've used up. They have used up Mirror Force, so we don't need to worry about that. The only thing we really need to worry about is another Woboku, but I think we should be fine. We're going to Change of Heart, getting their Lodge in here and attacking in. I think we could have summoned out 7-colored fish here, potentially, just to potentially get in for lethal damage. But I don't really think it's that bad that we didn't here. I don't know. I think we should have just gone for it. Their Mirror Force is gone. I guess we'd be playing around a board clear. Like, if they do have Woboku, then we don't want them to follow up with, like, a Dark Hole or Raigeki clearing away our 1800 beater. So I guess it makes sense in that context. But maybe we should have just gone for it, because now they are at 1400, and we could have potentially just killed them very easily here. We're going to set a 7-tool, set a Woboku, pass back to them, and see what they do. They're going to activate Heavy Storm. We're going to chain Woboku. And honestly, we're fine with this heavy because we probably wouldn't use the 7 tools for anything meaningful anyways here. They're going to just set one, set another, pass back to us. And Mask of Darkness is nice, but we don't really need it right now. We're going to Swords to just check what they've got. We're going to bring out a 7-card fish. They do have Trap Hole for that. We'll switch our Sangans to defense, pass back to them. Honestly, they're getting low enough that we could have actually attacked in with both our Sangans, had them draw 2 cards, and we know that they've used up both their heavies, so they wouldn't be able to clear the swords yet. We could potentially just keep attacking into their Mass Sorcerer and potentially deck them out. But we're not going to do that. We're at very low life points, so we can't really afford to be taking this chip damage, even though it is very small. And I think we can just beat them through our own merits in a couple turns anyways. We draw Pot of Greed, which is very nice. We'll activate that Pot of Greed. Draw 2, and Reborn is very good. They do have a Cannon Soldier engraved, so we can just Reborn that, and that will be the end of the game here. So all in all, I think this first game really showed off the strength of this deck. Game 1, we really locked them down with our counter traps in the late game, despite having a very slow start. And game 2, you know, Mask of Darkness looped back Mirror Force multiple times, which I think also shows off a very big strength in the deck. As I said before, Lucas is a great player, and so if we can actually manage to win a match off of him with this deck, I think that is a testament to how good it is. However, the deck does have some flaws, which maybe you'll see in the next match. Okay, we've got another match here against Lucas Gustafsson. We just, did a rematch right after playing those first games because they were really awesome. So we went into match 2. But, they do know we're on the Mass Negate deck now. So let's see if that affects their playstyle at all. Yeah. Okay, we do lose the rock, paper, scissors. So unfortunately, we will be forced to go second here. Not the worst thing in the world, but it's still kind of bad. We would have liked to have had a turn of setup for our counter traps. And, oh, that is unfortunate to see in the opening hand. You never want to see multiple Thunder Dragon in the opener. Always very unfortunate. Luckily, we don't draw the third Thunder Dragon, but unfortunately, we will have to just discard 1, get 1. And it's not quite as good as it would have been otherwise. We're going to think about what we want to do here exactly. I think the best play is probably just set the Sangan, set the Woboku, and pass. We could get aggressive with the Change of Heart, but honestly, that's probably a Recruiter. Because they don't have any spells or traps engraved, so it's unlikely to be like a Magician of Faith or Mask of Darkness. So we are just going to set Sangan, set Woboku, and we're going to set 7 to the Bandit. Kind of risky here if they've got a heavy, but I think we're trying to bluff that we maybe have Magic Jammer if they've got heavy. So they're going to bring out a 7-colored fish. That's fine by us. They're going to flip up a Sangan, and they're going to attack into our Sangan. We're going to use Sangan to search out a Witch of the Black Forest, which I think is pretty good. And we will take 1,000 from their Sangan, unfortunately. They're going to activate Swords, and that is fine by us. Unfortunately, it does put a damper on getting aggressive here. If they didn't have the Swords, we could have summoned that Witch, attacked into the Sangan. But now it's a bit iffier. We do have a way to remove their 7-colored fish if we want to. We could Change of Heart it, tribute set over it with Thunder Dragon. But I think we can just afford to keep playing this recruiter game here. So they're going to attack into our Witch with the 7-colored fish. We will use Witch to get back a Sangan here. They'll attack in with the Sangan, and we will take in another 1,000. They'll pass back to us. Mirror Force is a great draw here. We'll set the Sangan, set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. And let's see what they do. They're going to try attacking it again. And I think we could afford to take this just one more time. But we are going to fire the Mirror Force here. We can afford to get aggressive with Mirror Force, as we do have Masks of Darkness in the deck to loop it back. They are going to get a Witch off that Sangan search. They'll set one, very likely the Witch, and pass back to us. Pot of Greed is a very nice draw. We will activate it. Draw 2 here. Trap Hole is another great draw here, but we're not going to set it. I think maybe we should have, but I guess we do have the Change of Heart Thunder Dragon play to deal with whatever big beaters they bring out. They're going to flip a Witch and just attack into our set here. It is a Sangan, and we'll grab back another Witch. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Mask of Darkness, which is incredibly nice. It can allow us to loop back that Mirror Force. We bring out a 7-colored fish. They will Trap Hole. I think, honestly, we should have 7-tooled this just to have it. I don't really know what else we're saving 7 tools for besides, like, Mirror Force or Uboku. And now we do have an empty board that they could potentially heavy. So I do think that we messed up there. But we are just going to pass back to them. And they're just going to attack in for 11. We'll take it. But they're just going to set one, pass back to us. And, oh, we had 7 cards in hand last turn, so we should have potentially discarded. I think if I noticed that I had 7, I would have actually set one, the Trap Hole. And I asked them if that would have changed anything, like if they wanted to heavy this board or not. But it looks like that would have been fine. So we are fine with that then. We're going to bring out a Lodge in here, attack in to their set, and they will just take 700. And they will get a search. They'll get a Mass Sorcerer search, which means they likely have like a Fisher or something. But nothing we can really do about that. They are going to Fisher away our Lodgin. We're going to make the Thinky Face to bluff Magic Jammer, but we don't actually have a Magic Jammer. They will get rid of our Lodgin. Summon out, Mass Sorcerer, attack in. And we will actually Uboku this. I think maybe we could have saved the Uboku, but we are in a very heavyable board state. And we do have Mask of Darkness to get back Uboku if we want it. It's not the worst. We are going to Change of Heart their Mass Sorcerer. Try and attack in for 900. They do have Uboku for that, which we were hoping that they would have and activate. We could have activated the 7 tools there just to make it so that we do get the draw. But I guess we're saving it for something better. But I think we are playing a bit too conservatively with our 7 tools of the Bandits. They do have a Heavy Storm here, and this will unfortunately clear our entire board. So we didn't even get to use the 7 tools at all, which is part of why I think we should have used it earlier with the 7-colored fish summon against the Trap Hole. If we are in a vulnerable state where we could get heavied, I think it's just good to get aggressive with the counter traps. But you live and learn. They bring out a Muka Muka, attack into the Thunder Dragon, and they'll pass back to us. We draw a Trap Hole a turn too late, unfortunately. And we're just going to set a Mask of Darkness, set a Trap Hole, pass back to them. And let's see what they do. They're going to bring out a Sangan. That is fine by us. And they're just going to attack in here. We do have Mask of Darkness to get back Mirror Force, which is pretty good. And they're going to attack in with the Sangan for another 1,000. We draw Fisher, so this means that we don't actually need to use the Mirror Force yet. We can clear the board just using Witch and Fisher. We attack into Sangan, cause them to lose 100. They get another Witch to hand, but we can Fisher away their Muka Muka in main phase 2. Pass back to them. We have Trap Hole to protect the Witch, and I think we will use up that Trap Hole. We do. They set one, pass back to us. Feeling pretty good about that. Magic Jammer is a great draw here, and we'll attack in with the Witch. We will just set 3. We do have the Magic Jammer in case they have another heavy, so we're feeling pretty good. They're just going to set one, apparently not set another, pass back to us. We draw a 7-colored fish, which is pretty nice. We're going to summon that 7-colored fish out. And having the read that they have a Magician of Faith here, as they didn't want to set another card to the back row, we are just going to right-gate that away, prevent them from getting back Heavy Storm most likely. and we will attack in here for 2,900. They're going to activate Mirror Force, but we do have 7 tools for that, so we will be able to keep our monsters on board. They're just going to draw, activate Raigeki here, and we could actually Magic Jammer this, and we do. If they've got another board clear, that's kind of tough for us, but honestly, this board stays really good. They know that we have Mirror Force set, but they don't really have a way to deal with it, and we've got 2 very strong monsters on the field. So they're just going to set one, set another, pass back to us. We have Dark Hole. We don't really need to use it yet, but we will attack into their set. Unfortunately, it is Giant Soldier, so we won't be able to clear it. We'll switch the Witch to defense, pass back to them. And they are going to just change of heart our 7-colored fish. Bring out a Cannon Soldier and just try attacking in here. We might as well Mirror Force this because they're just going to tribute off our 7-colored fish anyways. So this at least clears the Cannon Soldier. And we've got a very good Dark Hole board next turn potentially. This is an even better Dark Hole board now. They will last without a Mass Sorcerer. Pass back to us. We've got swords. We could activate swords now, but we don't really need to. We're just going to Dark Hole the board away, search out a 7-colored fish, and try and get in for some damage here. We'll bring out 7-colored fish, attack in. They do have Waboku, unfortunate, but nothing we can really do there. We'll set a Sword of Within Light. Maybe we should have just activated it because we do think that we can probably win in a couple turns. But we're playing it a bit too safe here, and maybe that will come back to bite us. Looks like they are just going to set one and pass back to us. We draw a Lodgin, so we'll just bring that out. Try and get in for some damage here. They do have Magician of Faith, so they will get back Raigeki. Maybe this is an argument for having Swords of Within lighted before, because we could have flipped up Magician of Faith. They probably would have gotten back Raigeki anyways. We could have just attacked into it with 7-colored fish, and they likely don't really have many monsters left, so we could have potentially forced them to use Raigeki on just one of our beaters. But, you know, hindsight's 20/20, and this way we do at least get them down to 1,400. We're going to activate the swords here in case they do have a monster in hand to follow up the Raigeki with. They will Raigeki our board away, and they do set one, so they did have another monster, so I think we made a fine choice. And that's turn 1 on swords, but we can't activate this Fisher, so we'll pass back to them. They set a Mass Sorcerer. We draw a Mask of Darkness, which is pretty nice. We're just going to set that, pass back to them, and they'll pass back to us. So we draw another Fisher, which doesn't really do anything here. We're going to think about this. We're going to flip up the Mask of Darkness here, add back a Mirror Force. If they've got Magician of Faith, they've got Magician of Faith. Nothing we can really do about that, but we've got to go for this anyways. So I think this is fine. We just got to hope that they don't have a Magician of Faith set. They will bring out White Magical Hat, and they are going to actually try attacking in here. This is a bit rough. We will lose one of our Fishers, but honestly, I think we can let this go through. We can Fisher the White Magical Hat next turn, and Fisher isn't really good on this board state, as they've just got a bunch of set monsters. We will lose that Fisher. They'll set one, pass back to us. Reborn is a very good draw here. We could potentially Reborn a beater and attack into White Magical Hat, getting in some more damage. We could save the Reborn for later as well, in case we can Reborn the Cannon Soldier and get in some damage that way. We're running very low on cards in deck, though, so it's a bit risky. I think we should just Fisher away the White Magical Hat here. I think that is the better play. But I do get a little bit greedy here. I'm thinking for a bit, and then I do bring back Lodgin and just get in for 800. I think this was a big mistake. I think I should have just saved it, Fishered away the White Magical Hat for now, and just waited for a Cannon Soldier of my own, or to just amass enough monsters on field to Cannon Soldier them out of the game. But I guess they haven't used a Reborn either, so I don't know. I think this could be fine. It's just a bit risky. I think I should have just saved it. I would have likely also had counter traps as well to deal with potential outs to this, but we will get in for 800 there, pass back to them, and they will Fisher away the Lodgin, flip up Mass Sorcerer, that's fine by us, and they will actually flip up Witch as well. They're tagging in for 2,000 here. I think we do have to Mirror Force this, and they will get a search off the Witch for a 7-colored fish, but nothing we can really do about that. They're going to set one and pass back to us. Very likely the 7-colored fish. We draw 7 Tool to the Bandit, which is not the best, but we just got to hope that they don't have another monster here. They flip up 7-colored fish, and they will reborn, and that will be the end of the game. I think that this shows off one of the big flaws with the Mass Negate deck, is that if you're at the end of the game and you really need to draw live draws that can get you out of a simplified board state, the counter traps can gum up the works a bit. We drew a very reactive card, 7 Tools of the Bandit, instead of a card that could have allowed us to dig ourselves out of the hole that we found ourselves in at the end of the game. So I do think that does show off one of the major flaws of the deck. I mean, in an ideal situation, the deck will never get to that point, as you're negating your opponent's big, powerful spells and traps that would potentially reduce you down to that situation. But it's a good thing to know and keep in mind. Also, I think this game showed how you should be trying to get a bit more aggressive with your counter traps. If our 7-colored fish hadn't been trap hold, maybe it would have changed things, because we would have had an aggressive beater on field, potentially gotten a little bit more damage. They only had 600 life points at the end of the game there, so maybe we could have pulled it out. But, you know, hindsight's 20/20, and the deck is a bit tough to play. So the more you play it, the more you get used to these sorts of ins and outs of it. So that was game 1. For game 2, I don't think we actually sided in anything, as the deck is already pretty well equipped to deal with mass control as is. Maybe I should have sided in like Heavy Storms, because they probably by now figured out that we don't run Heavy Storm in the main deck. But I just keep things as is. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think if we had adjusted our playstyle a little bit that game, we could have potentially pulled out a win there. But let's see if we can do so in game 2. We are going first this time, and this is a pretty good going first hand. We do just bring out a Lodgin here, set a Magic Jammer, pass back to them. We could have saved the Lodgin for next turn, but that gets punished if they have a Mass Sorcerer just to attack in with. It also kind of gets punished if they have a Trap Hole next turn. So we're just going to go for this. If they do try and Fisher our Lodgin, we could potentially Magic Jammer. Not sure if we necessarily want to, but we could. And let's see what they do. They will Fisher our Lodgin, and we will let that go through. Maybe we should have just tried to Magic Jammer just in case they had a Mass Sorcerer. But alas, we did not. They will just attack in here for 900, draw a card, and set 1. We draw Mirror Force, which is pretty okay. We will just Fisher away that Mass Sorcerer, though. Set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Lodgin, which is a very good draw. We can bring that out. Unfortunately, they do have the Trap Hole. We are going to make the Thinky Face just to bluff that we do have a 7 tools, but we do not. So we will lose that Trap Hole there. Or lose the Lodgin there, not the Trap Hole. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We could Change of Heart this, but it's unlikely that they have a Magician of Faith set. They probably wouldn't just try and get back a Fisher, so we're just going to pass back to them. And, yeah, they're going to pass back to us. Seems like they're fine with this board state as is. We draw Swords, which can combo well with Fisher later on if we wanted to. But they're just going to pass back to us. Seems like we're at a pretty, you know, neutral position here. Neither one of us wants to commit. We'll start committing. We'll bring out a 7-colored fish here. We could Swords and Fisher as well, just to get super aggressive. But we feel like it's probably not a defender. It could be, but it might not be. So, unfortunately it is. So, you know, we won't be able to get in for damage this turn. But it ain't the worst thing in the world. Maybe we should have had the read that it was a defender, because they didn't flip it up and attack in with it. And if it was a recruiter, they probably would have done that. But, I don't know. I think this is fine. We can save these swords for later. We draw a Witch, which is pretty nice. And we're just going to attack into their set. And it is a Princess of Tsurugi. So that's an interesting little side deck choice against this deck. And I think it's actually pretty decent, because oftentimes we do commit a lot of back row because we're not too worried about heavy because of the Magic Jammers, and we want to get as many counter traps on board as possible. So Princess of Tsurugi can potentially deal a lot of damage here. Unfortunately for them, it's just going to deal 1,000, but every 1,000 does count. So it's not actually that bad. We're just going to set a Witch here. If they do board clear, we're honestly fine with that. And they're just going to set another pass back to us. We're just going to attack into that. Again, we don't really feel a need to Fisher the Giant Soldier until we're sure that we can get in. And it is another Princess of Tsurugi, so we will take another 1,000. So those Princesses of Tsurugi have dealt 2,000 damage to us total, which is pretty nice. We are going to Magic Jammer the Heavy Storm because we want to save this Mirror Force. Maybe it was a bit of a mistake, but, you know, I think we had to do it. They're going to bring out a 7-card fish, attack into our 7-card fish, and honestly, we're just going to let that go through. They'll pass back to us. We can actually fisher away their their Giant Soldier Stone here and get in for Witch. So we're perfectly fine doing that. We'll attack him with Witch, pass back to them. We don't feel the need to commit 7 tools to board because that's a very juicy Heavy Storm potentially. They're going to bring out a 7-card fish, and they're going to try attacking into the Witch. And we could Mirror Force this, but honestly, we can just let it go through. Grab a Lodge into hand. And they disconnected for a bit and just keep playing. We'll bring out the Lodgin. We are going to change of heart their 7-card fish, and we could just get super aggressive here. We could Reborn out like another 1800 beater. We could Reborn out a Mass Sorcerer to draw another card and get in a ton of damage. But we're feeling pretty good about this. We are just going to go super aggressive. We're going to Reborn out the Mass Sorcerer. We do have Mirror Force to back it up. So we're going to get in for a ton of damage. I think maybe we did make a mistake here. I think we should have Reborned a Recruiter just in case they had a board clear. But this way at least we get to draw a card as well. And we draw Thunder Dragon, which is pretty nice. We'll be able to add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand. Thin out our deck a little bit. And in the end phase, they will get their 7-card fish back. And they do have Raigeki. So this is an argument for reborning a Recruiter. We would have gotten a search here. But, you know, hindsight's 20/20, as I said. They are actually going to reborn as well, going for a Mass Sorcerer here. And they will just try and attack in for 2700. We are going to Mirror Force that because that does put us in lethal range if they have a Cannon Soldier. So we're just going to clear their board away. We do have a Mask of Darkness to get back the Mirror Force if we want it. So we're not feeling too bad about that. We draw Trap Hole, which is decently nice. We're going to set a Mass Sorcerer, set Mask of Darkness. Too many Mask monsters in this format. Set a Trap Hole, set a 7 tools, pass back to them. If they've got heavy, they've got heavy. It'd be kind of unfortunate, but nothing we can really do there. They are going to change of heart our Mask of Darkness, which is really rough for us. Luckily, I think the only trap they have is a Trap Hole, and that is the case. It's not the worst thing in the world. But this is kind of rough. We really did want to get back that Mirror Force, as that would have been a major play. They will get back the Trap Hole, flip up a Magician of Faith, get a Reborn to bring back a Mass Sorcerer, and try and get in for a bunch of damage, but also a draw, which would be pretty rough for us. We unfortunately have nothing to do to stop it, so they will be able to draw there. Activate Swords. And this is extremely rough for us. They'll just set 2, pass back to us. And this is what I mean when I say that maybe we should side in heavies, because in the 3 games we've played against them, we've never used heavy once. So they feel comfortable making a play like this now. But, man, if we did have heavy, that would be very, very nice here. Unfortunately, we don't, so we've just got to play like that. And we will just tribute set our Mask of Darkness for a Thunder Dragon. We know that they don't have Raigeki anymore, and there's no easy way to clear a set because they also don't have Change of Heart or Reborn. We've got a 7 tools abandon Trap Hole, so if they try and bring out a beater that can get over this, we can just Trap Hole it. 7 tools if they've got a Solemn. So we're feeling perfectly fine about that. We're just going to pass back to them. We don't need to activate Swords now, as there's no real good way for them to deal with this. They're just going to set 1, switch their Monster Defense, pass back to us. And we will activate Swords here. Flip up a Sangan, that's perfectly fine. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. Raigeki is very nice. We'll be able to Raigeki their board, get in for a lot of damage potentially. And they're just going to pass back to us. I think Swords is expired now. They Trap Hole our Thunder Dragon, which means that we can Dark Hole this board away. And they will add back a Witch. We could normal summon out the Mask of Darkness to dodge around Trap Hole, drop them down to 1500. We could normal summon the 7-card fish to go for a bit more damage. We could also set the Mask of Darkness to get back Mirror Force. We know they don't have Change of Heart. There's a lot of different options here. This is a really important turn, so we do have to think about it quite a bit. We will bring out a 7-card fish, though, and apparently that will be fine, so we will be able to get in for 1800 here, potentially. They activate Mirror Force, but we do have 7 tools, so we will be able to negate that. They've got a 7 tools of their own, however, so they will be able to get rid of our 7-colored fish. Honestly, not the worst outcome for us. They're down to 1,400, which is not that much. Unfortunately for us, we are down to 1,100 now, which is very risky. So we're just going to pass back to us. We do have swords up. Unfortunately, if they've got a heavy storm, that would be pretty bad for us. They have only used up 1, so it could be in our future. Let's just hope they don't. They activate Pot of Greed. This makes it a little bit more likely that they will. But they're just going to set 2, set 3, pass back to us. So we're feeling okay about that. We do draw Sangan, so we could just go super aggressive here. Summoning out Sangan, Raigeking their set, and just trying to drop them down to a point where we can cannon soldier them for game. This is a big thinker here as well, because we could just set Mask of Darkness if we wanted to do that instead. Get back a Mirror Force could be pretty good. It's definitely a big thing for sure. We are going to go for the aggressive play. We're going to bring out Sangan, Raigeki away their set. If we manage to search out the cannon soldier for next turn, then we could potentially kill them here. We'll tech in for 1,000. They will Boku this, which, you know, it was likely they had one, but still kind of unfortunate. We'll set our other trap hole here, trying to bluff that we maybe have some counter traps that we don't. They'll bring out a witch, and I think we will actually trap hole that. We will, and they will add a lodge into hand, which is perfectly fine because we do have another trap hole. They do have Fisher, so we'll search out a monster here, and it's a bit of a choice. We could just grab the cannon soldier, try and go for game that way. They've only used up 1 trap hole though, so we really want to save the cannon soldier for when they're at their last 500. They've also only used up 1 Waboku, so it's likely they've got another one of those. We do still have another Sangan and Witch in deck, so we could search as one of those. And it looks like we're going to grab a Witch, and they'll pass back to us. Magic Jammer is a great draw here. That gives us a lot of insulation. They're going to trap hole the Witch, and we've got to think about what we want to search again. And we are just going to search a 7-colored fish, get aggressive here if we can. We'll set a Magic Jammer, pass back to them, and they're going to bring out Lodge in. We are going to trap hole that, and that will go through. They're going to set another pass back to us. Swords is even better. We're feeling very good about this now. We are going to try attacking in. They're going to Boku this, and main phase 2, we're going to activate Swords, pass back to them. They're going to draw, and they're going to try Dark Holding. This means that they probably don't really have a good way to clear the 7-colored fish. So I think actually we should Magic Jammer this. Let's see how many Fishers they've used up. They've only used up 2 Fishers, so they do have a 3rd in deck somewhere. But if they had the Fisher in hand, they would have just Fishered. So I think we actually can afford to Magic Jammer this spell. Unfortunately, we do not, and I think it may actually cost us the game here. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Mask of Darkness. We're just going to set that Mask of Darkness, pass back to them. And they do think about this for a bit. And, you know, in a game like this where it goes so long, it really is a big consideration about what is in each player's graveyard. You'll notice that we have not drawn any Waboku over the entire course of this game, so they probably have the read that we do have a Waboku set. But it's tough to say because, you know, as you can see, we actually have just not drawn Waboku this entire game. So they're just going to think about it for a bit, and they will flip up the Magician of Faith and grab back a Sword of Divining Light of their own. This will prevent us from getting aggressive, which is very nice for them. They're going to activate Swords, flip up the Mask of Darkness here, and we will actually get back Trap Hole. Reason being is that we definitely lose to a Cannon Soldier. So we've got to set the Trap Hole before they can actually bring out the Cannon Soldier and tribute away their entire board and kill us that way. Unfortunately, seeing that we do get back the Trap Hole here, they will just summon out the Cannon Soldier right away to prevent it from being Trap Holed later. And that is incredibly unfortunate for us. We don't really have a way to deal with that Cannon Soldier. We just got to hope that we draw one potentially, and unfortunately we do not. We just draw 7 tools. We'll set Trap Hole, set a Mask of Darkness, but honestly there's nothing we can really do here if they have another monster. And unfortunately they do have another monster. So that will be the end of the game. But man, what a good game. These matches were both super, super good. And I think it really shows off the potential of this Mass Negate deck. I am definitely not a perfect pilot of this deck. I think I made some major mistakes, mainly not magic jammering the Dark Hole in this game, not 7 toolsing the Trap Hole previous game. I think there were some major mistakes, but I do think that this build definitely has a lot of potential. I think if more people look it over and test it out on their own, I think it can definitely become something very good, maybe even a tier 1 deck. However, it does have some flaws. If you draw the counter traps at the wrong time, you can be put in a really tough position. And while it didn't show in this match, this deck has a really bad matchup against Exodia. It doesn't really have any discard cards. I mean, maybe you could add a card destruction to the deck. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world since you're playing Thunder Dragons, and you can brick on counter traps. But as is now, the deck wants to play a very long, grindy game, and Exodia thrives in that because it can often fulfill its win condition before you can. And given that Exodia is one of the biggest threats in the format, it's worth mentioning this major flaw of the Mass Negate deck. That being said, I think this deck is super fun to play, super skill intensive, and can lead to some really, really awesome matches, as you saw here. So I hope you enjoyed watching them as much as we enjoyed playing them. If you have any ideas for how to change Mass Negate in the future, do you think that I should add Solemn Judgments? Do you think that I should add a card destruction? And if so, what should I swap it out for? Please let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, I've been Ben with YGO from Zero. I'm signing off.